The clock is at 0 and another Cougar football game is in the books.
This year, fake it to Martin. Throw it to Roberts. And Chase Roberts is in. Touchdown, BYU. Beautiful. J.J. Buchanan is in. He's been a good red zone target. Dampier rolling his way. He goes end zone for Davis. And Ryan Davis has a touchdown, Utah. How does that affect the fatigue level of their defense? Carvalho puts it on the ground. Oh, my goodness. BYU says they have it. 3rd and 15. Pressure coming again. Dampier has to uncork. He's got it to Bentley. Dallin Bentley, the tight end. And he flips it away. Merriweather on the move. And it's officially a fumble to Merriweather. This is Bray running left behind Mokafisi. Bray is free. He got by Wall into the end zone. Touchdown, Daniel Bray. Utah takes the lead. They do have Lavani Demooney, the transfer from Stanford, who is in. Kingston on the run. Kingston in space. Kingston to the end zone. Touchdown. Buckmeyer straight ahead. Design run. There's a bear on the loose in Provo. Buckmeyer is in. Touchdown. Pressure coming from Kelly. Dampier hit and down he goes. Jack Kelly may have sealed it for BYU.
Now it's time to break down all the action. You're listening to the Cougar Postgame Show on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Welcome on in. It is your Rivalry Week post-game show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. I'm Christian Esparza, joined by Alex Napoles, as we are breaking down the Cougs taking the victory, Alex, 24-21 in what is another game for the ages. The graphic said 19 of the past 24. I guess you could say now 20 of the past 25 of these Holy War games have come down to one score or less. And today it's BYU coming out on top again, 24-21. Want to thank everybody for joining us as we are live on Facebook, on YouTube, on X. We are also on 1280 AM, working through some technical difficulties. My lighting's not the best. This was kind of a makeshift studio in here, but Alex, we got to be here to break this thing down.
Absolutely. And you know, like you said, it's for the books. Another one that comes down to the final, to a one-score game, and just everything that you could probably ask for and probably want for in a rivalry game. A lot of big moments for the true freshman quarterbacks and big moments for Utah's offense, but ultimately it is the BYU Cougars offense who prevails in this one to the 24-21. Can't wait to break it down with you, man.
Well, and interestingly enough, it was Utah who outgained BYU tonight, 470-368, but ultimately it's the points on the board that win the games, right? And I guess you could point to the biggest efficiency for Utah tonight was their fourth down efficiency or lack thereof, 1 of 5 on the night for fourth down, including at least 1 in the red zone. And there were a few times where Utah elected to go for it. No, there were at least 2. Yes. Where they elected to go for it on fourth down in the red zone instead of taking the easy points. And of course, losing by 3. In games like this, you got to take the points. I think it's as easy as that. And I think there were instances of both coaching staffs kind of outsmarting themselves a little bit today, but it seemed like it was ultimately Utah who kind of got the wrong end of the stick tonight by their own coaching decisions.
Yeah, I think right now, in hindsight, we look at it and you see it and you say, take the points. In game, maybe that first one, early in the game, I don't mind it. The second one, though, for sure, you got to take the points there, man. You gotta be able to put a ball through the uprights and just take the points, especially since I think at that point, right in the second one, at that time, it's your third time in the red zone, and you're 0 for 3 in the red zone at that point.
Yeah. And ultimately they did get better towards the end of the game as far as their red zone numbers when they needed it most. But by then it was too little too late. I think Utah had just passed up on the points too many times. And looking at the passing stats for Dampier tonight, he was 20 of 36, 244 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. It seemed like Utah was kind of scared of running up the middle. I don't know what went into the game plan there, but running a lot of jet sweeps, a lot of off tackle runs with Bray, and we did see it break open for the touchdown there late in the game, but a lot of outside runs, a lot of passes, not really much running up the middle. And the few times we did see it, I mean, specifically thinking of that Dampier play where he got hurt, got a little banged up there, it looked like, but shout out to BYU's defense and their linebackers for really, really shutting down the run. And that makes it tough for Utah to operate.
It makes it tough for Utah to operate, especially when that's what made Utah successful last week against Arizona State, right? Yeah. Is when Devin Dampier took it in and be able to find some space up the middle. But tonight, Jack Kelly, Isaiah Glasker, those linebackers, everybody was honed in and stopped the run, stopped Dampier running effectively. Dampier ultimately ends the night with just 64 yards compared to the 120 plus that he had last week. And I think that obviously makes a huge difference.
Whether you're a BYU fan or a Utah fan or impartial, whatever, leave some comments in the chat. We want to get some reaction. We will be taking phone calls later. Not quite able to do that yet, but we'll give the number out when we are ready to do that. But Alex, we have a very special guest joining us. Viral sensation, Scotty G, joining the postgame show to break down this win. There you go. Scotty, initial thoughts?
I've been covering this game in some way, shape, or form for 22, 23 years. And there's always a moment, it feels like, in each one of these games where it just signifies the rivalry and it just signifies the craziness. And that Bear Bachmeier late touchdown run to put him up 10. I mean, you guys are relatively new in this business. You will be talking about this for 10, 15 years, that Bear Bachmeier run. You won't remember the score per se. You won't remember a lot of but there's these individual moments in individual games. And that's going to be one of them that will be remembered by BYU fans and for Utah fans for a long, long time. It was a really interesting game to say the least. This is one where it felt like when Utah went up 14-10, it's like, okay, here we go. Utes are gonna find a way to get this done. But you've got a true freshman that we're seeing. He's not a freshman anymore. Let's be honest. He's not. This kid is the real deal. He is playing out of his mind. He is exceptionally talented. I've been making references to him and Tim Tebow. I'm not saying he's going to have the career of Tim Tebow, but he looks like Tebow. He's big, strong, and when he runs, he doesn't look fast, but guys can't catch him, and he runs over dudes. Like there's a lot there that you can be excited about. But for BYU fans, 3 in a row, you're on cloud 9, and you should be. The momentum and the trajectory of these programs have shifted dramatically. And with that, BYU has a complete stranglehold in this rivalry and in the trajectory of their programs in every way possible. And yeah, if you're a BYU fan going to church tomorrow, puff out your chest because your team earned it.
Wear that blue tie.
Yeah.
That run that you are referencing, Scotty, I want to say he got hit at like the 6-yard line.
Yeah.
And he carried dang near half of Utah's defense into the end zone. And you're right. That's just a very special play. And there are not a lot of players, much less not a lot of quarterbacks in college football that can do that. And again, against Utah's defense, that's saying something. So I am utterly shocked that Bear Bachmeier played relatively mistake-free football tonight, especially with turnovers in the past 2 games. I thought Morgan Scalley's defense was going to be able to get in Bachmeier's head and force him to make those mistakes that we had seen. But man, Coach Roderick had it dialed in. Bachmeier had it dialed in. The playmakers were ready to come and make plays. I mean, Chase Roberts with a beautiful touchdown catch. This team is legit. And, you know, when the Retzloff situation happened and it kind of felt like doom and gloom with the true freshman taking over, and now you're 7-0. I don't know how many BYU fans would have thought that this would be the case.
No BYU fan in their right mind thought this was going to happen. And frankly, I thought BYU would play it safe and go with McKay Hillstead while they got Bear Bachmeier up and going. And I talked to a member of the coaching staff down at BYU on the defensive side, and I asked him, are you guys nervous on the defensive side watching BYU go with a true freshman? And this was before the season started. And he said, no, we see him every day, and we all knew that was the right choice to make. This job was going to be, it wasn't going to be handed to McKay Hillstead. McKay was going to have to lose it in camp, and he didn't necessarily lose it as much as Bear Bachmeier just ripped it away from him. And everybody on that team knew pretty quickly the Bear Bachmeier deserved to be the starting quarterback. And when your team knows it, your coaching staff, you're like, we got to give it to him because the ceiling is just way too high. And I mean, we're seeing it right in front of us. That was not a true freshman playing football tonight. That is not a kid that's just a biscuit toss away from a senior prom. That is a kid that is mature beyond his years, who has a feel for the game well beyond his years. And is he perfect? No, but my goodness, what a show tonight. And we're going to remember this one for a long, long time.
I think the thing that sticks out to me the most about Bear Bachmeier is, I mean, you go back to the West Virginia game, he has his first, little bit of turnovers, a little bit of, there's the interception, there's the toss to LJ that ends up being recovered by West Virginia. And the response from Bear Bachmeier is what sticks out to me the most, right? It's so easy for a freshman quarterback to get caught up maybe in the turnover, right? Put your head down, but you didn't see that from Bear. He responded by getting a deep ball to Parker Kingston and also making a big play with Chase Roberts. You fast forward to the Arizona game, you're up 14-0. You go down in that game. You have to claw your way back and then win the game in overtime. And again, you don't see any type of head hanging from Bear Bachmeier. He's poised. He's calm. He's phenomenal in the situations. And then again tonight, this is your first rivalry game, right? He's a true freshman coming into this game. He's never played this game before. And even then tonight, he seemed poised. He seemed calm. And I think that's what sticks out the most to me about Bear Bachmeier.
I do think we need to take a moment, and if you're a true freshman, regardless of how good you are, you need support. And I thought the offensive line got a great push. LJ Martin did his thing, but on the defensive side, those linebackers, and I know you guys mentioned him before I hopped on, Jack Kelly ends the game. And Jack Kelly is one of those guys that just flat out can take over an individual game. We've seen it happen a lot. And remember, if we're not living in this day and age of transfer portals, that kid finishes his career at Weber State, and he has a great career. I mean, obviously he's going to have a great career at Weber State, but to be able to allow him to showcase that kind of a skill set at the Big 12 level and in front of 65 crazy fans and millions of people watching on TV, I got to imagine. I sure hope that dude made some money tonight because he's well deserving of it.
He makes the big sack.
Yeah.
He makes a big sack to end the game, and then of course,
yeah. And
the
2 weeks removed from
the questions coming into this one, right? Whether or not he was going to be healthy, whether he was going to play, and then doesn't show up on the chart coming into this one. That's huge. It's a huge. It's big for BYU to have him. I just can't imagine what this game would have been like if Jack Kelly wasn't able to go.
Yeah, and that might be the difference in the game, frankly. As much as we're praising Bear Bachmeier and for all the good reasons, but you know what? If Jack Kelly doesn't play, maybe Utah finds a way to win this game. And that's the kind of impact he has.
Scotty, I hate to put you on the spot, but do you remember the last time a true freshman quarterback won this game?
True freshman. Was Ty a true freshman or a redshirt freshman? Do you know? Do you have the answer?
No, you've been covering this a lot longer than I honestly can't. I
can't think of one.
And I'm sure that's going to come out, whether it's from Mitch or somebody on BYU's SID team. But I'm sure that's going to be a stat that comes out because even 3 straight for BYU now, but even before that, it had been a long time before BYU had won. Period. So this is a very special game to remember tonight for BYU fans, for that alone.
Oh yeah, no doubt. And I mean, you look across the coaching staff for both these teams. This meant so much for Utah. Ron McBride came on our show on Friday and said that he had heard that team talking about, hey, they went and celebrated on our field last year. They celebrated at Rice Eccles. Now it's our turn to celebrate on their place. That team was fired up that went into Provo, and BYU, for the most part, outside of that touchdown where Utah took the 14-10 lead, BYU held a good stranglehold on this game stranglehold, not necessarily in points, but it always felt like BYU was one step ahead for the majority of this game.
There's not a lot of times where I felt like Utah had that much momentum going on.
Yeah.
Their side. I mean, you mentioned it earlier, Scotty, where they scored the touchdown and it felt like the momentum was going to swing towards Utah, and it felt like they finally had something going, but then immediately BYU marches down the field. There's a big pass to Carson Ryan too, and I thought Carson Ryan had a phenomenal performance, right, to come back and kind of haunt his former team. There's a big play to Carson Ryan. They march down the field and they end up going right back, right? It's like if that touchdown never happened, and that moment was for Utah to capitalize and try to find some momentum, but instead BYU said, no, this is all ours.
Yeah. And by the way, that's another one you have to feel good for. Carson Ryan, who kind of got lost in the shuffle last year at the University of Utah. He's been such a dynamic force for this BYU offense and has really found a home. And, I believe, I don't know, he may sue and get another 2 years of eligibility. I don't know how much time he's got left. I don't know with these kids these days, but yeah, I mean, there's so many great storylines. I mean, we can sit here and talk about this game for hours and hours and hours. Because there's so many different angles of this game, which are just phenomenal.
One thing we gotta bring it up, right, is, and you kind of touched on a little bit, after Utah lost last year, after the year they had, and then Utah loses again this year. Do you think it plays into Kyle Whittingham's decision, on what he does for his future? And I know that decision's not going to be made tonight, but do you think it makes it more or less likely that he hangs it up at the end of the year, or more likely that he comes back because he has to get one more win against the Cougs?
You know what? Honestly, I would think, okay, let's just, obviously, however the fight, because I think he was close when they went to I think had they beaten Ohio State or Penn State in the Rose Bowls those years, I think he may have walked away at that point. But there was that drive to get back at it. And remember that first Rose Bowl year, Utah lost to BYU. So I don't think this in itself makes up his mind one way or another, but I do think the remainder of the season. So am I sitting on the fence on this a little bit? Yeah. But I think if this team goes on a heater and they rip off 5 in a row to end the season and they're playing in a Big 12 championship game, I think he probably, this is me speculating, I think he probably still leans on shutting it down. If they finish the year 5-7 or 6-6, he may want to come back, but I don't know. I kind of get the vibe. And again, speculation on my part. I do think we might be seeing the last year of Kyle Whittingham here. Either way,
we got a lot of Coug fans in the chat begging Utah to keep Kyle Whittingham for what it's worth. It's been a crazy turn of events because, again, Utah won so many straight games, and then the rivalry was paused for a little bit, and now it's 3 in a row for Sataki, and it really feels like this is a special BYU team. Of course, undefeated more than midway through the season, beating your rival at home. I know that the schedule really toughens up for the Cougs over the next 4 games, but after this win and the way that they've played it, it feels like they can achieve anything.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't look, honestly, what game do you feel after what they have done over the last stretch of games, that Texas Tech game in Lubbock is going to be huge here in a few weeks. And I know Texas Tech took it on the chin a little bit in their loss to Arizona State, but honestly, I mean, BYU could be a favorite outside of that Texas Tech game the remainder of the season. We'll see, but they're going to be they're quickly become America's darling right now. And that atmosphere and the storyline of Bear Bachmeier and everything else, they've got a lot of people across the country cheering for them right now.
Going back to a little bit of the talk of the streak, Utah's obviously 9-0. Well, it was 9-0. Now BYU is 3-0, and they're starting their own streak. Scotty, and you're from what you've been able to watch and what you've been able to see, what's caused that kind of shift in momentum now for BYU to be able to come back and win and start their own streak?
It's a great question. I've seen so many ups and downs in this rivalry, and it is always, going this way. Now, granted that 9 years or 9 consecutive for Utah, that was a bit of an extreme. And there were a lot of close wins for Utah during that stretch. It's not like he dominated the scoreboard every single year. There was the Jason Shelley comeback and the Brandon Burton block. I mean, there were a couple opportunities for BYU to get wins in that stretch, but they just couldn't get it done. But, the way I look at it right now, I think BYU is on an equal playing ground in terms of recruiting. For so many years, it was Utah Pac-12, BYU Independent. And that was just a huge recruiting advantage for the University of Utah. So they had higher caliber talent coming in and year out. Now BYU has caught up in terms of conference, and now BYU's playing with a little bit more dollar bills in the world of NIL. So I think it all comes down to talent. It all comes down to players, and BYU has increased their talent level immensely. And I don't think Utah's gone backwards per se, but I do think that they plateaued in terms of overall talent.
There is still a lot of talent on this Utah team. Unfortunately, it really hurts when one of your star players takes a targeting call late in the game, takes himself out of the game. That was a tough one. But things like that, I mean, that's what this game comes down to, is like who makes less stupid mistakes. And tonight, it really felt like it was BYU playing the cleaner game. And I know that obviously the penalties were lopsided. More were called on Utah, and there's been a lot of talk on social media whether or not, the Cougars should have had more penalties called on them. But the big one that you can point to is that targeting call on Lander Barton late in the game. And him leaving the game was huge for Utah's defense.
Well, and you wonder if Lander Barton's out on the field, if Bear Bachmeier is able to get that run,
Right,
I mean,
exactly.
Lander's the kind of guy that may stand up Bear Bachmeier, and that may not be a missed tackle there at the 5-yard line and the push coming from behind to get him the score. And if Utah's able to hold to a field goal there, then it's a 1-possession game, and who knows? So yeah, I mean, we talk about talent. Lander Barton's on that field. Who knows what could happen at this point? But that's the beauty of this rivalry. There's so many what ifs, coulda, shoulda, wouldas, and they all kind of lined up for BYU tonight.
Yeah,
going back and talking about some of the mistakes, I think the biggest one of the bigger ones that stands out is the punt situation from Utah. I guess just what's your thoughts on that, on giving the ball up to BYU in that situation?
It's a good point. I can go both ways on this one. The same thing with Kalani. Should he have kicked a field goal instead of going for it? Yeah, I probably don't, but I definitely, I get, I've been around Kyle Whittingham enough to know his thought process there. So it's a tough, I could, you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Always. And that's what it comes down to with this game. There's always ifs and buts. And at the end of the day, I mean, it's BYU who put up more points, and that's what matters most. And it's tough. I mean,
putting up more points, that does matter the most.
Yeah, that's going to win you the game. What did Booger McFarland say? The quote, but whatever. It was Utah that had more yards tonight, but it's BYU that wins in the points. And, you look at fourth down efficiency. Both teams were bad, but it's kind of resetting the scene a little bit. Utah had multiple drives stall out in the red zone where they, looking back at it, of course, it's easy to say they should have kicked field goals instead. But, man, I just can't believe that this game is it's ended the way it did. Like it really feels like a turning point, I guess you could say, for this BYU team. And I know they won last year and then the previous matchup, but to really stack 3 in a row, it feels like their hands are closing in around the neck.
Well, you almost kind of throw that first one BYU had out because there was that gap in between year one and the second win last year. So I look at this. I know BYU technically has won 3 in a row, but I actually look at the 2 in a row last year and this year, and I think that is the statement there. You can say 3 in a row and you can puff out your chest a bit, but the fact that you went back to back against Kyle Whittingham, no time in between, and they had a full offseason to be all ticked off, all angry with piss and vinegar, looking for any opportunity to get an edge, spending all week just like, we're not losing these guys. You know, Kyle sticks out that chin. He's like, we're not losing these guys. We're angry. And yet BYU still gets it done. To me, this means more. The third win in this series means more than year one and more than year two. This is a statement that, no, BYU's not going away. That wasn't a fluke last year. And it definitely, because, you know, Utah had control of that game and let BYU get back into it last year. So you can say, you know, the Farron kick and the holding penalty and all of that stuff that was a fluke. And the refs gave you that one last year. Okay, well, this year, nuh-uh. I mean, you can say Lander Barton maybe, but honestly, you had plenty of opportunities to get stops on that drive and hold to a field goal and go down with a touchdown and try to win the game, and you couldn't get it done. So this was a huge statement win for BYU.
2 in a row is not fluky.
Nope.
For the Utes, now you're 2-2 in Big 12 play. That door may or may not be closed for you to try to get to Arlington. I guess, what do you take away from a close loss like this at your rival's place when your offense just wasn't as efficient as it's been the last couple of weeks?
You're playing catch up. I think we can eliminate Utah in the Big 12 title game race. I mean, crazy things can happen, certainly. You're actually going to be needing, if you're Utah, to cheer for BYU against Texas Tech. So you want BYU to give Texas Tech their second loss. But even then, Texas Tech still has the tiebreaker with you. BYU will have the tiebreaker with you as well. So, it's just, I'm sure there is a path. I just don't see a realistic path that Utah gets to the Big 12 championship game. BYU, on the other hand, hey, especially if they beat Texas Tech, it's smooth sailing to Arlington. Buy those tickets right now. BYU will be playing in it.
Well, Tech lost today, so BYU's on top of the Big 12 right now.
Yeah,
they're number one in the conference, and that's kind of crazy to say out loud. And it seems like, to your point, Scotty, it's almost like for Utah to make the Big 12 championship, it would have to be in a rematch against BYU. I mean, I know that there's some technical things that we would have to look at scheduling wise, but initially, off the top of my head, that's the only way that it would really make sense, unless, BYU like loses out, or Tech, or, whoever loses out. But you're with picking up this second conference loss, and who Utah has lost to already, they're going to be playing catch up. And we saw it with that second Pac-12 championship. It has happened before, but you don't want to bet on that.
No. You lost a huge opportunity if you're Kyle Whittingham and the Utes. You had it. There was an opportunity here. There was a path moving forward. Couldn't get it done.
Yeah. Scotty, thank you for joining us on a late Saturday night. Appreciate your insight. Again, you've been doing this for a very long time, and, viral sensation. It's always good to have somebody trending on Twitter hopping on the post-game show.
That one got away from me a little bit. There's certain things you don't anticipate are going to go like that. And did
they tweet? Did they DM you and ask?
Yeah, they did. And with that Barstool crowd, I was like, I don't know if I want those dudes to get a hold of it, but they're like, all right, fine, go. And for the most part, except people saying like he must have learned it from his grandkids. That hurt deep. I don't like that. Other than that, it was pretty cool.
Oh man, enjoy it, Scotty.
All right,
a lot of limelight for you. Thank you again.
Thanks, Scotty.
We'll see you.
All right, guys, that is Scotty G. We are getting some audio rolling in, so I want to jump out to that. We had Devin Dampier and Logan Fano take the podium for the Utes, so I want to get out to that and let you hear from them. So here's what Devin Dampier and Logan Fano had to say after the loss to BYU.
Devin, just kind of talk about the emotions of this game right now to start off.
We're not happy. We know what our team is capable of. We had aspirations to be undefeated after our first loss, so it hurts us right now.
Are you healthy right now?
Yeah, I'm solid.
Logan, kind of where do you think kind of things went wrong tonight?
Just got to play assignments on football.
Devin, walk me through just the fourth down decisions. Obviously, you guys opted to not go for field goals there. I mean, was it a lack of execution, or was BYU's defense just making it difficult in the red zone there?
Yeah, that's on us. I think we've been great third and fourth downs all season. glad that Coach Witt trusts us in those situations. Sadly, it didn't go our way. But yeah, I mean, they're a talented team as well. They can make plays.
Devin, what was, I guess, the mentality there offensively to have Bird come in and do some run plays? Were you hampered at all, or was anything going on?
Yeah, I mean, we had that play in all week, and you know, we decided to run it, and Bird got a lot of yards on his first one, so keep feeding the high hand, and I mean, we scored that drive too. So,
kind of going back to those fourth downs, kick a field goal, you get some points. I mean, what was were you just trying to be aggressive at the beginning of the game, or kind of how did that go?
You know, just the odds of football, 4th and 1. You know, if you have a talented offense, you know that normally it's in your odds. You know, so we took those chances and.
Logan Lander was ejected there in the fourth quarter. Just how much did that affect the defense, both from a leadership standpoint, but also stopping the run game, LJ and Bear?
Everybody knows Lander's a big part of our defense, but it's on me. As the other captain, I got to step up and I got to bring the guys along. So that's my fault.
Well, it seemed like you guys were close to getting pressure to him. You're getting to Bear. Was there something that he did that just kind of allowed you guys to just not be able to have that? To kind of finish the play?
He's a good quarterback. I mean, he's young, but he's a good quarterback. Credit goes to him. They had a couple different protections that we should have beat, but yeah, we should have just made tackles and made plays when they presented themselves.
Logan, what caused them to be able to get yardage up the middle in the run game?
This goes back to how I answered the first question. Got to play assignments on football.
Devin, have you seen so far this conference? It's pretty crazy. It seems like any team just about can beat any team on any given Saturday. You got to be ready no matter who you're playing.
Yeah, you know, since I've gotten in this conference, that's something, you know, I've always said anyone has a chance to win on Saturdays, and, you know, you got to come out every Saturday and be ready to play at your best.
Is it, since it's such an intense rivalry game, I don't know that it's difficult or easy is the word, but how do you put this behind you because you still have a lot of games to go?
Yeah, you know, we've been in this situation before. We lost a football game before, and, you know, we bounced back just fine. So, you know, I got full trust in my team still. This game doesn't change that. I think we still got a strong team all around. You know, hopefully we'll show that to the world.
You've gotten the chance to look at what happened on the interception and kind of, what happened there on that play.
Yeah, you know, I'm a risk taker. It was third down. You know, I thought give one of our receivers a chance to go get the ball. DB made a better play, and you know.
Devin, it seems like you guys were moving the ball pretty efficiently when you played tempo. What was the the mindset to kind of like slow it down and instead of going tempo most of the game?
Yeah, you know, honestly, I think we moved the ball pretty fine all game. Again, just those 4th downs we didn't convert. But I mean, what we were doing out there was working.
There you go. That is Devin Dampier and Logan Fano answering questions after the 24-21 loss to BYU. Of course, getting hammered with the why didn't you take the points there in the end zone, and then getting hammered with the injury questions for Devin Dampier. We saw him take a big hit, slow to get up. There were tweets saying that he was slow to walk off the field, maybe a little bit of a limp. And then the very next series, Bert Ficklin came in and ran a play, but then we did see Dampier return. So little bit of speculation there, but at the end of the day, man, everybody's a little banged up. I mean, Jack Kelly was playing with one arm.
Yeah.
You got to do what you got to do to win this game. And tonight it was BYU.
You got to do what you got to do. And we talked about it a little bit with Scotty, but it just felt like the Utah just wasn't as efficient as they've been the last couple of weeks. And I think ultimately that's what's going to hamper them, right? You look at the third down efficiency coming into this game. This is a Utah offense who was amongst one of the best in the nation of converting on third down and having one of the higher percentages on third down conversions. You go 5 for 12 tonight. You mentioned the 4th down conversion too, only 1 for 5. And the lack of efficiency in the red zone feels a little bit similar to some of the conversations we had last year about this Utah team of not being able to punch it in the end zone. And of course, ultimately not taking the points.
Yeah, I think it really came down to Jason Beck kind of outthinking himself a little bit. And I shouldn't blame Coach Beck. I don't know if it was Beck or Whittingham whose decision that was. I guess probably more on Witt, but 2 times in the end zone, man. And not only was it choosing to go for it instead of kicking the field goal, but it's kind of the plays they ran. Like they ran on the first one, 3 plays in a row where they run the jet sweep motion, and then it's basically a read for Dampier to hand it to Bray on the jet sweep or keep it and go up the middle. Not fooling anybody. And BYU really shut it down there in the end zone. And then the second time around, it was basically the same thing. I mean, it's just the play calling wasn't as creative for Utah tonight, it felt like. And I know there were some instances where it felt like they might get going. What'd you say?
Oh, I just said there was.
Oh, yeah.
Instances. And then you also had the big man catches, man. So there was some creativity there, but ultimately BYU did a good job defensively to even counteract those and come up big in those situations.
Well, and that's what I was going to say, kind of contrast between the two offenses. Like, you watch BYU's offense, and it seems like they get a lot more creative with the play design and some of the motions that they ran, where Utah, it's like they're running the same concept 3 or 4 times a drive.
Yeah.
And not to say that BYU didn't, but it just felt like BYU was a lot harder to stop, which is weird because, again, Utah finished with more yards. But, man, I think A-Rod was in his bag tonight. Not to say he called a perfect game, but they're really, these two offenses could not be more different.
100% agree. Ultimately, BYU was efficient when it mattered, and I think that's what's going to stick out, right? There were only 3 of 12 on third downs, but in the situations, in the early downs, in the situations when it mattered, BYU came up big, and that's ultimately, I think, why you're able to put up 24 against Utah. And I think that's ultimately a lot of it too has to do with Bear Bachmeier, man. Again, showing that he's not just a true freshman, but he is a very solid quarterback with an incredibly high ceiling, and that's exactly what you want to see if you're a BYU fan. That's exactly what you want to see from Bear Bachmeier.
Man, he was calm. He was poised, did everything they asked him to do.
Yeah,
only
man.
166 yards, not the greatest total yardage wise, only 1 touchdown. Again, not eye-popping stats, but it's like, dude, watching this game, you would think this is a Diego Pavia playing his 7th year in college football, right? Like, it is crazy. And of course, got to give a shout out to the supporting staff. LJ Martin, 26 carries for 122 yards, helping him out. Kingston had another nice game, 4 catches for 50. We mentioned the Chase Roberts touchdown. We mentioned Carson Ryan having some big time catches when they needed him. And the offensive line, I want to talk about that because I kind of hinted this morning on our College Football Saturday show. I thought Utah's defensive line was going to dominate this game. I thought that they were better coming in, and I know that John Henry Daly still got his, right? But ultimately, at the end of the night, I feel like BYU won in the trenches tonight, and that's why they've got the victory.
There was a lot of great blocking for LJ Martin. LJ obviously goes for 122 yards tonight. There was a lot of great blocking for Bear Bachmeier, and then just ultimately doing a great job of keeping the pocket in a good spot enough for Bear Bachmeier to get the ball out and get the ball off and make those plays. There was plenty of times where, John Henry Daly was just a couple of seconds behind and just a couple of seconds away from coming up with a big sack. But ultimately, again, because of the way that the offensive line blocks, not just in the run game, but in the pass protection as well, it made life easy for BYU.
All right, Alex. Last year, we got one of the more infamous moments in BYU-Utah rivalry game history when we went to Kyle Whittingham's post game because he had a special guest. I didn't get any text, so I don't think that is the case tonight. But we do have Kyle Whittingham's post game audio available. Let's get to that before we take our first break. So this is Kyle Whittingham, what he had to say after his, 3rd straight loss to the BYU Cougars.
Tough loss for our guys. Proud of them. They showed a lot of fight, a lot of heart. Did some really good things tonight. Outrushed them, out-threw them, out-first downed them, but we didn't score more points than they did. That was because of the turnover margin. We lost turnover margin 2-0. Tough to do that against a team that's, a 6-0, highly ranked team. It's tough to overcome that. We weren't our usual selves in the red zone. We were one of the best red zone teams in the country up until tonight, and tonight we just couldn't quite find a way to get it in the end zone. When you have almost 500 yards of offense and and 21 points to show for it. That's means that something's not going well for you in the red zone. Weren't very good on fourth down. I think we were 1 of 5 on fourth downs, and so it was. They made the plays tonight. They made the plays they needed to make. We didn't match that, and like I said, it boils down to the turnover margin, the red zone production, and the fourth downs. So questions,
Coach, the 2 red zone opportunities, fourth down. Why not kick the field goal there?
Analytics, well inside the analytics to go, well inside, 3 yards inside the analytics, and so unless you tell me to go against the analytics, that's why.
Do you have to adjust that given the game and the matchup here?
No.
Do you like to play calling though?
Yeah, I thought we racked up almost 500 yards. Yeah, so.
I mean, on the fourth downs.
Oh, sure, I got no problem with the play calling. Yeah, on those.
About the one where it was maybe the field goal that was missed, as BYU called a timeout, then you brought your offense back on. What was you thinking with that?
The analytics there said to go for it as well, but we were going to kick it initially, and then we had a change of heart.
Kyle, you talked about cutting back on penalties. Today obviously wasn't that. Where's kind of been the discipline there, or where's that been?
Yeah, that was, we've been good, really good penalty-wise, except for 2 football games. And other than that, we have been, I think we're 4th in the league, at least penalized, 4th or 5th in the league. And so there's just been a couple games where it seems to snowball on us, and tonight was one of those 2 games. And there were some really damaging penalties there.
Kyle, Devin did most of the design quarterback runs in the first half, and in the second half you guys opted for Bird most of those plays. Was there strategy behind that? Was Devin hampered by an ankle? I mean, just walk me through that.
Yeah, we felt you'd have to ask Devin about how he was feeling, but we just tried to get a spark, and Bird is a really good runner, and we had a package specifically for him with Devin on the field at the same time, a 2 quarterback package, and so we decided, in the second half that was something that we wanted to go to.
How do you handle the highs and lows? I mean, last week you're high, teams were low, now this week it's reversed.
Good question. It's part of the deal, and you go from elation to devastation in a 7-day period of time, and back and forth, but that's what you sign up for. I mean, that's the nature of this business.
What kind of got away from the defense there in the fourth quarter?
Yeah, well, it was disappointing. We took this lead 17-14, and then just seemed like in the blink of an eye they were back in the lead at 21-17. We didn't play the quarterback run game. That QB draw really was damaging. Wasn't third and a lot, and you got the QB draw down there in the red zone. So we just didn't play as well as we needed to.
Coach, Utah's dropped the last year to BYU now. Does that add any motivation or influence your thinking on coming back and coaching this rivalry again next year?
No. We won 9 in a row before that, so we're still on the very plus side of that ledger.
Mana Carvalho muffs that punt. Can you kind of walk us through what happened there?
Yeah, I talked to Mana, and he's a very prideful young man and cares tremendously about the team and his role. And he just felt the ball was floating. In his exact words, he thought it was coming deeper than it was, and it took a nosedive, he said. Just all of a sudden it just dipped and caught him by surprise and consequently mishandled it.
How much did the loss of Landon Barton hurt you guys?
Well, he's a real good player, so it certainly didn't help. But the refs took a look and thought it was targeting, and so it was, it was the end of Lander's night. But, yeah, he's a really good player. You don't want to be without, any of your good players. I mean, that's...
Time for 2 more.
I'm sure it might have been frustrating. You might have had Bachmeier sacked there, and then he gets out. Then the
exactly. That was a huge swing of events. We had the sack and had him behind the sticks, or would have had him behind the sticks, and then Lander had to come clean it up and got called. Like I said, it was, I guess it was questionable whether it was or not, but they decided it was. So.
Do
Kyle, you guys went in tempo in that late touchdown. Was there ever any consideration to go tempo?
Yeah, we did some tempo earlier. Yeah, we did some tempo earlier too. And so, yeah.
Do you feel like there's any similarities between this game and Texas Tech game where it was close and then you kind of gave up a lot in the fourth quarter?
Well, not to the extent of that one. That one was much more dramatic in the way it happened. We eventually we closed it to 24-21, so we had a shot at the end. We didn't execute the onside kick very well, but at least we had a shot at the end. Whereas in the Texas Tech game, we didn't have a shot.
There you go. That is Kyle Whittingham addressing the media after losing 24-21 at BYU. That is Utah's second loss in 2 years. That's their third loss straight, I guess, going back to 2021. So a bit of rough sledding for the Utes. We are having a bit of a change to the post-game show, bit of an audible, if you may. This stream is going to end, but we are going to take over on 97.5 and 1280 AM. There also will be a new YouTube stream popping up on the KSL Sports YouTube page. So I would encourage you to tune in there. We will be on video. We will have Patrick Kinahan joining us. Also later, Alex Keary and Jake Hatch will be joining, and you'll be able to hear from Kalani Sitaki and BYU players as well. So again, this stream is going to end. We will be hopping on the radio here shortly, and we're going to be taking calls too. And that's going to start up here in about 5-10 minutes-ish. Be sure to tune in. We'll throw out the phone number, get your thoughts on BYU's win. So one more time, this stream is ending real quick. We are going to head to 97.5 FM, 1280 AM, and a new YouTube stream will be popping up soon as we continue to break down this rivalry game. It's your BYU Cougar Utah Ute Rivalry Week post-game show brought to you by 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.